Guys, it's Ryan here from learnometrics.com, and today we're going to be going over a series on fractions. One of the things that I've found with the biggest hiccups my students have is in doing the actual fractions. This can be engineering students, this could be calculus students, this could be algebra students. No one is ever too far along in math to review fractions. And so today, what we're going to be doing is this series is going to go over three things. The first thing is I'm going to try to help you understand intuitively what a fraction is and what it can be defined as, the different ways to define it. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to help you understand all the key terms so that when I say what's a ratio or what's a complex fraction, you're not sitting there going, man, what the heck is a ratio? I don't know. And the final thing is actually going to be performing the fractions. So we're going to start out with simple fractions like multiplication or division, and then we're going to move on to complex fractions. These are going to be those kind of crazy variable, these crazy algebraic expressions that you see here that you're like, why the heck would I ever want to solve this? Answer: engineering. I've actually solved things that are much worse than that, and they have real meaning, and they are annoying. So don't worry, we'll start out with the easy stuff, and I'll take you step by step to get to the harder stuff. So this is going to be our learning dashboard. We're going to have me in the bottom left, key terms in the top left. This is going to be where equations or definitions go so that you can see them during the entire lesson. And on the right is going to be our whiteboard. The way that I'm going to teach these lessons is first I'll introduce a concept. And then if it's applicable, I'll give you a simple problem that I'll work through. And then I'll give you another simple problem that you should pause the video and attempt the problem. Even if you don't get it, it's really good to try to develop your problem solving skills without just looking at the solution. Then I'll introduce a medium problem and you can try to solve it. And then I'll show you the solution. And then I'll show you sometimes, not every time, a difficult problem. And that one may or may not have a solution. So you'll always have an easy one. You'll always have a medium one. You may have a difficult one. But with all that said, let's get into doing fractions. So, what the heck is a fraction? Well, a fraction is going to be, in its most simplistic form, anytime you divide one thing by something else. That's its most simplistic form. So this could, for example, be 3 divided by 4. It could be, if we're looking at algebra and variables, it could be x divided by y. If we're looking at, I don't know, sheepdogs in Ireland, it could be 50 sheep that like a shepherd owns for every one sheepdog. It's amazing how well they are at controlling those guys, just running them all around. It's fun to watch. But anyways, so this is a fraction. You're basically just taking one thing or idea and you're dividing something else by it. Now, there's another, a bit more advanced definition of fractions, and that's going to be a ratio. Now, what a ratio is it's any time you're relating two things together. So for example, for a ratio here, this 50 sheep to 1 sheepdog, this is a ratio. So this is saying for every, if I can write that correctly, for every 50 sheep, a farmer has 1 sheepdog. So a question is, how many sheep would a farmer have if he had 3 sheepdogs? A farmer have with 3 sheepdogs. So kind of intuitively, you may be able to guess that it's going to be 150 sheep. But we want to be able to do that both intuitively and with the math. So the way we would find it with the math and using our ratio term is we would have 50 sheep per dog, per 1 dog, times 3 dogs. From fraction multiplication rules that we're going to get into in the next episode, the dogs would cancel out and we would be left with 150 sheep. And so this is just one example of using a ratio to figure out an unknown value, which is a very common thing with word problems that a lot of students struggle with, but we're going to help you develop the intuition to solve those. All right, so the next thing is going to be, what are the key terms that you need to know in order to do fractions successfully? Your 3 key terms are going to be numerator, denominator, and fraction bar. So let me pull back our old 3/4 fraction, and we can go through each of these terms. So the numerator is whatever is on top. So anything above the fraction bar is your numerator. So in this case, I haven't said it yet, but our fraction bar is this horizontal line here. So the thing above the fraction bar is going to be our numerator. Our denominator is going to be anything below the fraction bar. So in this problem, that's going to be 4, the denominator. And then the fraction bar is going to be the thing that separates the numerator and the denominator. And it's commonly, the way you would say it if I was reading this, I could either say 3/4, so like I just mentioned before, 3/4, where the fraction bar would be coming from this term, because that would be what's saying it's a fraction. Another way to say it would be 3/4. So the fraction bar would be coming from this over word. Or another way to say it would be 3 divided by 4. Because really, 3/4 is just another way of writing 3 divided by 4. So your fraction bar is going to be with the word over, the word divided by, or in terms of ratios, the word per. Those are little keywords to let you know it's a fraction. So next, there's a few more terms. There's a proper fraction, an improper fraction, and a mixed number. These are generally just words that textbooks use. They're not really useful in like actually doing problems. They're just kind of, you should know these to be aware so that when they're mentioned, you know what the terms are. So a proper fraction is going to be when your numerator is smaller than your denominator. So numerator less than denominator. So this 4/7 here, or 4 divided by 7, is going to be a proper fraction because 4 is less than 7. So this is proper fraction. By that same token, 7 divided by 4 is going to be an improper fraction because my numerator is greater than my denominator. And then finally, the mixed number is something that I personally really dislike. I hate using this. I hate when textbooks use it. I think it's very useless. Outside of things like, I don't know, cooking, when you're measuring out flour or stuff like that. But a mixed number is going to be when you have an integer in front of a fraction, or a whole number in front of a fraction. So this is a integer and a fraction. These really aren't useful in math. Please don't move things into mixed numbers. It's not useful. And then the final thing, the final really term that we're going to need to know is actually the word term, funnily enough. So when we're doing fractions, I'm going to refer to, say if I have a problem like this, where I'm adding 3/4 plus 5/7, which is something we'll get to in like episode, I think 3. I would refer to this 3/4 here as the first term. And I would refer to 5/7 here as the second term. And the reason is that a term is anything that is separated, I always spell that wrong, separated by a plus or minus sign. So if I have something that is like 3/4 times 6/8 minus 2/3, this is going to be one term. This is going to be my second term. And so that is going to be really all the definitions you need to do these problems, at least for now. I'll introduce more as we get going. All right, so that ends this episode. If you want a printout of the notes, or you want to have that definitions document that I was making so you don't have to write them all down yourself, you can sign up for the course at learnermetrics.com. The link's in the description below. And it also has additional practice problems, doesn't matter much for this lesson because there aren't too many problems, of varying difficulty with solutions that you can look at to make sure that you're doing the problems correctly. Next up is going to be multiplying and dividing fractions. I'll see you there.